Welcome to this webinar on improving plant efficiencies and performance during unstable times. My name is Royal Smith and I will be your host. I have just a few quick items of business to cover before we get started. If you are having any technical difficulties accessing or hearing the presentation, use the chat pad and we'll correct them promptly. This presentation will last approximately 45 to 50 minutes, followed by a question and answer period. We'll wait to answer any specific questions until that time to allow us to move through the material efficiently. This webinar is being recorded and will be loaded onto the PennTAP website next week. Let's look at our trivia question. How many jobs has the E3 program created? The answer is 1,515 jobs have been created. In addition, 2,802 jobs were retained. This is based on US EPA's data since 2009. Now let's get started. Today's webinar will include two speakers, Peter Piergiovanni and me. Peter Piergiovanni is a professional engineer serving as the Pollution Prevention Coordinator in the Resource Conservation and Recovery Programs branch for Region 3 of the United States Environmental Protection Agency, commonly called US EPA. Peter manages and implements the pollution prevention programs in Region 3 and collaborates and conducts outreach with various pollution prevention partners to assist businesses in the pursuit of reducing costs, hazardous materials and emissions, and energy and wastewater usage. Peter is responsible for Region 3 pollution prevention and source reduction assistance, grants and grantees that directly support the pollution prevention program. Peter develops and shares technical tools, trainings, techniques, and business pollution prevention lead opportunities. Peter also initiates, manages, and supports sustainable materials management projects and programs in Region 3. Prior to joining US EPA, Peter was a consulting and project engineer for manufacturers, machine builders, and consulting firms, both as a business owner and an employee. I am Royal Smith. I am a technical advisor for PennTAP. I'm a certified energy manager and certified practitioner in energy management systems. I've completed over 125 energy audits during my time at PennTAP. More information about me can be found on PennTAP's website. During today's webinar, I will show you how the US EPA's Economy, Energy, and Environment program, known as E3, helps to improve the efficiencies of any manufacturing process. The E3 process is particularly helpful in uncertain times. The focus of the program is to improve profitability, reduce energy usage, and reduce environmental wastes. Today's webinar will provide you with an overview of our partners in the E3 process. Then Peter will review the history of the E3 and pollution prevention programs within US EPA. I will then review the potential energy and environmental savings from an E3, as well as going over some of the basics of continuous improvement projects. Finally, I will wrap up with two case studies and conclude the webinar. The Pennsylvania Technical Assistance Program, PennTAP, at Penn State is a statewide technical assistance organization charged with supporting Pennsylvania businesses and anchor institutions, including manufacturers, municipalities, educational institutions, entrepreneurs, and economic development agencies. As a department within Penn State, PennTAP offers unique access to an abundance of resources from one of the premier universities in the country, including faculty, staff, and students. PennTAP can also provide clients with assistance from a rich network of government entities and private organizations. PennTAP focuses on helping Pennsylvania businesses through two primary areas of expertise: energy and efficiency services and innovation services. Since being founded in 1965, we have delivered services and solutions to many Pennsylvania businesses and professionals, creating a legacy of documented economic impact within the state and positive returns on investment to funding partners. In the past 10 years, PennTAP has worked with more than 3,700 organizations who have in turn reported approximately $300 million in economic benefit and the creation or retention of more than 4,000 Pennsylvania jobs. The United States Environmental Protection Program has been working to actively reduce pollution since 1990. While many people think of the regulatory and compliance arms of US EPA, the agency also provides technical assistance to companies to voluntarily reduce their impact on the environment. This is commonly called pollution prevention, or P2. The Office of Pollution Prevention focuses on helping companies complete the technical changes needed to reduce pollution by providing companies with necessary background information, offering training programs, financially supporting experts, and publicizing successful projects. The hierarchy on the screen shows the program's priorities. If the pollution can be prevented at the source, it is significantly better than disposing of the material or even recycling. Pollution prevention can include using different material in its place or minimizing the amount of material used in the first place. Our partner for the E3 program is the Pennsylvania Industrial Resource Centers. These centers provide small and medium-sized manufacturers with support services all throughout Pennsylvania. The group is collectively known as the IRCs. They offer programs to help manufacturers that range from management support to continuous improvement. The IRCs focus on making sure that the manufacturers within Pennsylvania are competitive. Each IRC has dedicated professionals available to help manufacturers improve and connect with vital resources. The IRC network is made up of 7 separate centers, including the Manufacturers Resource Center, Innovative Manufacturer Center, Northwest Industrial Resource Center, ManTech, Delaware Valley Industrial Resource Center, Northeastern Pennsylvania Industrial Resource Center, and Catalyst Connection. Each center covers a region of Pennsylvania as shown on the map above. After having learned about our partners in the program, let's discuss what E3 is. The goal of E3 is to identify opportunities to reduce costs, reduce energy, and eliminate wastes at the same time. The E3 event could be focused on a specific process line or on the facility as a whole. The E3 program was developed with multiple federal and state agencies joining together. The 2 notable agencies are the US EPA and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, also known as NIST. The US EPA has funded PennTAP to complete E3 events for many years. The idea behind the program is to bring together experts in continuous improvement, energy auditing, and environmental waste reduction onto one team. Using the combined knowledge of the experts, the team is able to identify opportunities that no single member would be able to do alone. For example, we'll be describing the different approaches using a process line at a potato chip manufacturer. The first approach we'll discuss is the one taken by the continuous improvement expert. The continuous improvement expert would be focused on the process steps with the goals of ensuring the process line is operating correctly. We're calling this the economy view portion of the E3. From the viewpoint of the continuous improvement expert, the process starts with the storage of raw materials. The potatoes travel via conveyor belt to a cutter, which slices and sizes the potatoes. The sliced potatoes are then fried and then packaged and sent to the warehouse. From a process equipment standpoint, the focus is on the inputs to each process step. The continuous improvement expert would be asking questions such as, how many employees are needed for each step? How much time does an employee spend there? How much time is required to change the equipment between product lines? How often does preventative maintenance occur? How often does unplanned maintenance occur? In the end, the continuous improvement expert would be trying to figure out why the process line is not always operating. The next approach would be from an energy auditor reviewing the facility. The energy auditor would focus on the major uses of energy throughout the process. The auditor will look at the lighting for upgrades, review the compressed air system for leaks, determine the efficiency of the comfort and heating systems, and look for gaps in the building envelope. During this assessment, the energy auditor would be asking questions such as, how much natural gas is used by the boiler? What controls the heater system? How many leaks are within the compressed air system? The next view is one done by an environmental waste auditor. The environmental waste auditor would focus primarily on the waste coming out of each step. Each waste will be reviewed to determine if it's potentially hazardous, the value of the waste material, and the ability to be reused within the process. While the raw materials entering play a role, the focus is generally on the waste output for each process step. During a waste audit, the questions asked would be along the lines of, how much waste is generated by each step? Where does the waste go? Can the waste be reused? What changes could be made to reduce the waste? When the three processes are aligned, there is a full view of wastes and costs of each step in the process. With this combined approach, it is easier to see how the energy usage relates to the manufacturing approach and vice versa. The site is now able to better estimate the energy savings from a process improvement. With the team of experts, the group would be looking for opportunities that hit all three focus areas. The team would be asking questions such as, if we change the cutter blade, could it increase productivity, reduce waste, and save energy? Would improved best management practices allow for less water usage while also reducing changeover time? Can streamlining the equipment layout help reduce the hours of operation, lowering both overtime pay and utility costs? We will now have Peter review the history of the E3 program as well as the pollution prevention programs and discuss some potential grant opportunities. Peter, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Peter Piergiovanni. I'm with the Environmental Protection Agency, specifically Region 3, based out of Philadelphia. This year is actually the 50th anniversary of the EPA. We could show that first slide. That would be great. Oh, so well, we missed that, but anyway. So this year is the 50th anniversary of the entire EPA, and in addition to that, it's also the 30th anniversary of the Pollution Prevention Act. So we've been going at it for 30 years with pollution prevention. Today, just want to give you an overview of the pollution prevention program and kind of lead back to what how E3 supports this. So pollution prevention assists businesses. We have certain measures that we look for across the board. We have grantees across the nation and specifically within Region 3 that are third parties and partners that help us implement the pollution prevention program. And we do that through grants. We have specific areas that we'd like to focus on. And I'm going to give you just a flavor of the new projects that are coming in and how we help spread the word. Next slide, please. So the way the pollution prevention assists businesses is we look at process efficiencies. We help reduce water usage, energy usage, emissions, waste. Hello, I'm sorry, got cut off in there. Anyway, we look at Can you hear me
Yeah.
now? Sorry.
Peter, we can hear you now. You are on waste reduction.
Okay, I don't know why I got. Um, okay, I'm sorry. So we work on waste reduction, particularly hazardous waste reduction, but a lot of the times when our partners go into businesses and manufacturers, they find other opportunities to reduce other kinds of waste that is not specifically hazardous. Um, We also offer ideas about substitutions to make something less toxic or to help you reduce the amount of toxics. The program helps compile technical resources and best practices, which are then shared with all our partners. Um, and another neat thing about it is a lot of our grantees are colleges and universities, and so they teach the up and coming engineers and technical people about and give them real world experience. So it helps them specifically, and it also helps manufacturers and businesses because then they have people who have been exposed, prior to getting their degree and coming to take a job as an engineer or someone who works in a manufacturing plant. Next slide, please. So we have 4 measures. So we try to, all the work that's done out there in the field, we try to bring it back to 4 things. One is a reduction in costs, driven by the reduction in hazardous waste and emissions. Specifically the amount of hazardous waste that has been reduced, the gallons of water usage reduced, and the metric tons of carbon dioxide that gets reduced. Next slide, please. So our current grantees, PennTAP being one of them, here's generally what they're working on. The District of Columbia Department of Energy and Environment is working with auto body and auto maintenance shops and also implementing something called the Green Wrench program, which if they do the right things and help with pollution prevention, they get designated as Green Wrench. So it helps that their business image. The University of Delaware is one of our partners, and they're working with food manufacturers. The Maryland Department of Environment has a green leadership program, which is joined by a number of businesses, and they network and work with each other to share best practices. And then they're acknowledged by that state agency for accomplishments. And then they also have a small specific project to help food manufacturers within their state. PennTAP's current grant is to work specifically with food manufacturers to do audits, give reports, and give suggestions and advice to help improve their operations. The Virginia Department of Environmental Quality is doing a project called VEEP, which is a project which is within their state, but we help tie into that. It's the Virginia Environmental Excellence Program. So they also work specifically with manufacturers on a broad scale for environmental stuff, but they also work on hazardous waste and reductions like that. West Virginia University is also working with food manufacturers too. So next slide, please. So we have 2 grants under the Pollution Prevention Program that helps fund or seed the work that third parties go out and do for us. This is just a flavor on this grant cycle. So it comes every 2 years, and it happened to come this year, 2020. So this is kind of how it works out. This is the amount of money that we had this year. This is the range of awards, 40 to 500,000. Now the thing about the pollution prevention grant, there's 2 things. One, it requires a 50% match. So it requires the person applying to give us an overall project amount, and they have to come up with 50%, and they apply for 50% or less to match it. This year in Region 3, we had 8 applications. 7 were found eligible, and 7 were selected. Now, eligibility is interesting in pollution prevention grant because you have to be a state or you have to be a state affiliated entity in order to apply for this grant. That's one of the major eligibility rules, including the 50% match. There are other rules that you have to follow too. Next slide, please. The Source Reduction Assistance Grant is more of an innovative type of grant where we're looking for source reduction assistance innovations. It's a little bit less money typically. It's also a 2-year cycle, but it only requires a 5% match from the applicant. And this year in Region 3, we had 6 applications, 5 were found eligible, and 3 were selected for funding. Next slide, please. As part of this, part of the grants and as part of our focus for pollution prevention, we've come up with 5 national emphasis areas. These are businesses that we'd like to help the most because we think that we can find the best opportunities here for pollution prevention opportunities. So the first is food and beverage manufacturing and processing. Second is chemical manufacturing. Third is automotive. Fourth, aerospace. Fifth, metal manufacturing. And this also goes back to the grant applications. When somebody comes in for a grant, they have to show that they're going to help at least one of these types of businesses. Next slide, please. So the newly selected grantees, and this is just happening now, the types of projects that are coming from the new grantees are also working with auto shops and auto maintenance, green leadership programs, state leadership programs, metal manufacturing, chemical manufacturing, and one thing should also be included here is food manufacturing. So that's the scope of the work that's coming out of all the grants, new grants. Next slide, please. And just one comment on the grants. If you're listening and you are interested, you can find all that information on epa.gov/P2 if you're interested in applying in the future, the next 2-year cycle. So P2 also, the very important part of P2 is to amplify and support our partners in the program and business. So we do that by sharing P2 successes in meetings, through emails, through through our website, and different ways like that. We also prepare case studies. Well, our third parties prepare case studies. Entities like PennTAP, we ask them to prepare case studies that we can share nationally, so that we can share that technical knowledge. We have meetings, webinars, and training that all our partners, both businesses and our third-party providers such as PennTAP, participate in. And we also look for financing, because a big part of this is many times entities like PennTAP will go out and give advice to a business and tell them to make a change, but it might be hard for that business to come up with the funding to do it. They maybe need a little bit of incentive. So we try to find things out there, and we actually have a group now that's working on that to kind of consolidate that information to share it with all our partners and businesses so that they can implement and get the tangible benefit out of the recommendations from our third-party providers. We also have something called a P2 Hub, which is another group that helps consolidate all this information that I talked about, the case studies, the meetings, the webinars, so that it can be centralized and then redistributed out in an efficient way to businesses and partners. Also, our providers like PennTAP can go to the P2 Hub. Actually, they have a hotline, so if they could call in and ask specific questions about maybe an industry or a business that they're looking to help. The P2 Hub also helps us with the P2 website, so that we can get the information out broadly and we can point people there and get them the most accurate information. The P2, this is a national application of the P2 Hub. I specifically have a project going on in my region using the P2 Hub where they're helping me generate leads of businesses that folks like PennTAP can go out and reach out to these people and see if they would like to have some P2 services done. And it's a loop because as they talk to businesses, they get back to me and I get back to the hub so that we help refine the type of businesses and the work that we're doing. And next slide, I think, is my contact information. If you guys have well, I guess it was at the beginning, but if you have any questions or anything, my contact information is in the next slide. It's piergiovanni.peter@epa.gov. So look forward to any questions or information that you want to share with me. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Peter, for that. So next we'll be discussing the energy and environmental savings portion of the E3 process. The energy and environmental pieces are being discussed separately from the economy portion for the ease of presenting the material. The success stories we go into at the end, though, will show you what happens when all three are pulled together. We'll start by reviewing the facility-wide programs when we're looking at energy and environmental components. This is an important first step in trying to figure out how much energy each individual process and step looks at. And then while we're focused on those facility-wide energy systems, we'll be providing you with some energy savings opportunities for those, in addition to the ones related right to the process step. So boilers and ovens are very common throughout manufacturing. If your site requires heating or cooking products, then there is likely to be an oven or a boiler at the site. Both ovens and boilers have opportunities to reduce the heat loss throughout their distribution systems. Compressed air is common in all manufacturing. It is common for leaks to occur within the compressed air distribution system. The leaks are generally quick and easy to fix. Waste heat happens when heat is sent to the atmosphere instead of being reused for a practical purpose. During an E3 assessment, we'll figure out where the waste heat occurs and where it can be used. The last piece in the puzzle is trying to figure out how to get it from where it's being generated to where it can be useful. For water usage, the key first step is figuring out what water ends up in the product versus what water is being sent to the wastewater treatment plant. While on site, we'd focus on gathering important process data. We'd need to ask questions about how the equipment operates, where things are located, and the hours of operation. We'll also have monitoring equipment with us. The monitoring equipment will be used to determine where the energy is used within the manufacturing process. After the site visit, PennTAP would then investigate or conduct research to determine potential opportunities to save energy. PennTAP would develop the cost savings associated with the projects, as well as how much the upgrade will cost. PennTAP includes all of the applicable grants and rebates into the project costs. We are able to assist with the application process for grants and rebates. PennTAP will create a pie chart for the energy usage for the process line. The information will be based on the equipment nameplates, discussions with the site, and data logging as applicable. This data is a key step in figuring out the broader impacts of the energy usage at the site. It helps us to focus on which process steps have the most potential for reducing energy. In this example, you can see that the cutter uses significantly more energy than the raw material processing. Further, doing this analysis allows PennTAP to link the continuous improvement changes to the energy usage. Through this data gathering process, PennTAP is better able to understand how and why energy is used within each process step of the site. PennTAP will complete the same process on the waste as well. In most cases, the waste is created within a couple of the process steps. The process allows us to focus on the steps contributing to the waste. It's important to keep these steps in mind when discussing the continuous improvement opportunities. The identified continuous improvement opportunities could decrease or increase waste. It's important to consider the waste when discussing these other changes. Now I will be discussing the continuous improvement portion of an E3. When starting any continuous improvement activity, the goal is to reduce waste. People commonly think of waste as defective components getting thrown out. However, there are 7 wastes that will be covered through the E3 process. The first waste is a defect. This is commonly a piece getting thrown out due to a problem. Even if the defect can be reworked and still sold, there's still a significant amount of waste in reworking the product. The next waste is transport waste. Transporting material around your building wastes time and energy. The less a product moves throughout your building, the better. For example, in some manufacturing plants, a product has to move from building A to building B, then back to building A. That movement is risking damage to the material with each move. Waiting is also called work in progress, or WIP. There's nothing good that can happen when a material is waiting to be processed. For example, if components are stacked on top of each other, there's a chance they will fall down. The longer each product is stacked, the more likely it is to fall down and become damaged. Overproduction is defined as making more parts than currently ordered. There is an inherent risk in having products stay on the shelf for years. In the case of one of our clients, the warehouse was expanded multiple times due to storing excess product. The costs of this warehouse expansion could have easily been avoided by not overproducing. Motion or movement focuses on the amount of walking an employee has to do to complete their job. As employees have to move great distances to complete different portions of their job, precious time is wasted. If the employee has to cover multiple pieces of equipment that are far apart, then the employee is going to be delayed in fixing problems. For example, if two machines are 100 feet apart and both need to be unclogged, then there will be a delay equivalent to the person walking 100 feet to get the second one fixed. Excess inventory for both finished products and raw materials contains its own risks. Most products change over time even if it's not visible. For example, something like wood doesn't have an expiration date. However, as wood sits in a warehouse, it can collect more moisture and start swelling. The wood is then more difficult for each step of the process to work with. Extra processing involves doing steps that are not valuable to the customer. As an example, extra packaging may be added. The customer then needs to spend extra time removing the extra packaging. This is a lose-lose situation for the manufacturing plant and the customer. As part of the E3 process, a value stream map of the facility is created. The value stream map is designed to break down the manufacturing components into the simplest forms. Each step in the process is represented by a single box. Along with the name of the process, the most important aspects of the process are added. These include the time it takes to process one component, the number of employees in the process, the material waiting to be handled, and the amount of downtime for each piece of equipment. As this data is added into visual form, it becomes easier to determine where the focus of the team should be. This is key because when working on complex processing line, prioritizing the problems saves time. As a simple example, if the downtime for the process is caused by one piece of equipment, then the E3 team now knows to focus on that one piece of equipment. In one recent case, we were able to figure out that one specific type of error was the cause of 30% of a manufacturer's downtime. If that error could be fixed, the site would see significant improvement in the overall efficiency. As with any data, the key is to get good data entered into the value stream map. Getting this data requires being on the manufacturing floor and talking to operators. Data from computer systems and logs are important as well and can provide you with long-term data. For a typical E3 process, the team would work together for 3 days. PennTAP is able to be flexible and do portions of this E3 process virtually. The first day will include training to ensure that everyone is familiar with the terms that will be used throughout the E3 process. The key is to make sure everyone is gathering data the same way. Then we'll start by creating a process map for the current process. The team will be heading out to the manufacturing floor to record data as the process line is operating on the day. It's best to pick a day when the line is processing the main product line for the site. While each day is different and unique in the manufacturing world, the day on site will generally be as good a representation as possible. The second day will be spent figuring out how the future will look. At this point, we're not worried about how to get to this future state. We're focused on how we think the equipment can reasonably operate. For example, how would the process look if we were able to reduce the downtime from 30% to 10% for a specific piece of equipment. The last day will be brainstorming ideas on how to get to that future state. During this brainstorming session, the idea is to create a series of tests to complete on the process. For example, what happens if a new glue is used for a week? Did the output of the processing line increase? It's important to note that only one variable should be changed at a time. If too many things are changed at once, then it's difficult to determine which change made the difference. Once the ideas have been discussed, the key is to put a single person in charge of each test. The person in charge does not need to do all of the work, but they should be the person figuring out how the test impacted the processing line. After the test, the person in charge will need to figure out what the next steps will be. The 3 days can be done consecutively or spaced out. There are benefits to both approaches. When it is done consecutively, it is easier for people to remember the details from the earlier days. However, when the days are spaced out, this allows people to work on some assignments and some tests between the meetings, which allows for greater discussion. At the end of these 3 days, it's important to remember that this is a continuous improvement. The actions taken do not constitute the end of the process. Once all of those changes have been tested and implemented, the goal is to use this process to figure out new opportunities to improve. The process does not have to be repeated in the exact same manner. It can be applied to administration or applied to a different process line at the site. The big key here is to keep moving forward with new ideas. When working on a value stream map, there are keys to achieving the results you want. First, one person should be in charge of managing the project. That person should be well connected within the organization and ready to make changes. The manager is responsible for making sure that people complete their own tasks and that nothing falls under the radar. The goal of the value stream map should be short-term realistic goals. If the site is currently operating at 50% efficiency, don't expect this process to achieve 100% efficiency. 60% would be a more realistic goal. Once the 60% goal has been achieved, then start the process over with a new goal. It is also important to clearly define the goal at the beginning of the process. Choose 1 or 2 clear factors for success. These factors should align with the long-term goals of the business. Having the clear factors for success will make it easier to keep everyone on the same page. For the duration of the process, it's important to allow experiments to take place. Some genius ideas can actually cause production to slow down, while some ideas that seem counterintuitive can improve the efficiency. The group should be testing the assumptions that went into creating the existing setup of the process. During this process, mistakes will be made. Production may still slow down. However, the long-term impact will be significant in a positive way. Also, make sure that there are safety nets in place. For example, don't plan to do these changes when an important order needs to be completed. I will now take some time to review 2 past E3 assessments to show how the process worked as well as the benefits to the companies involved. Bemis Polyethylene Packaging, commonly called Bemis, held an E3 event with PennTAP and the Northeastern Pennsylvania Industrial Resource Center, also called NEPERC. Bemis creates plastic bags for bread. The raw material starts as polyethylene pellets. The site creates the plastic sheeting, adds graphics, then cuts and folds them into bags. The E3 process included a review of their manufacturing process, the supplier's ordering system, and the sales process at the site. While working as a team, Bemis, NEPERC, and PennTAP developed a list of recommended improvements to the site. These improvements range from better coordination of the 3 main manufacturing areas to grouping similar orders together. In addition, the E3 assessments included 2 groups of Penn State students who reviewed the site's compressed air distribution system and the heating systems. The students used ultrasonic leak detectors to find compressed air leaks within the facility. The other group of students reviewed the heating system, including inlets and exhausts from the facility. Through the E3 process, the site was able to better plan equipment usage at the site. With equipment being used more efficiently, the site was able to shut down other pieces of equipment, saving the energy that was previously needed to operate them. After the project, the site was able to identify $81,000 in savings from the E3 process. CTC Packaging manufactures pallets, crates, and a range of packaging materials. PennTAP worked with the Northwest Industrial Resource Center, also called NWIRC, to complete the E3 event for CTC Packaging. As part of the overall project, the group discussed reorganizing the site around the purchase of a new saw line. The new layout and equipment would allow for the site to greatly increase the efficiency of the facility. Rather than moving materials around multiple times throughout the day, the new layout allowed the site to streamline the process. For example, the site needed to move the products 1,000 feet from one process to the next, then another 500 feet to the next process. After the recommended changes, the products now move 500 feet total between processes. It has saved a significant amount of movement of the product and employees. As part of the overall process, PennTAP determined the energy savings from the installation of the new saw line. The energy-only savings were approximately $15,000 per year. This calculation only included direct energy savings. However, the site was able to create significantly more products while working the same number of hours. This increased the production rate and was able to significantly improve the profitability of the overall business. The saw line cost approximately $425,000 to purchase. PennTAP helped CTC Packaging apply for the Rural Energy for America program administered by the United States Department of Agriculture. The grant program was able to provide the site with 25% of the project cost. That's over $100,000 to help implement the project. Now that we have discussed the E3 process, I would like to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about PennTAP. As mentioned earlier, we are a statewide technical assistance program charged with supporting Pennsylvania businesses and anchor institutions, including manufacturers, municipalities, educational institutions, entrepreneurs, and economic development agencies. We began over 50 years ago as one of the first technical assistance programs in the country. You can find us at pentap.psu.edu. PennTAP has a diverse staff with backgrounds in chemical engineering, electrical engineering, and environmental science. Our staff includes certified energy managers, registered environmental managers, certified energy auditors, and a Six Sigma Green Belt. We also have a certified practitioner in energy management systems on site, one of only six certified in Pennsylvania. We work closely with our clients to understand their needs and make appropriate matches to resources within the university and across the state through our statewide resource partners. PennTAP's services include two pillars: energy and environment and innovation. The technical advisors for the energy and environment team also perform pollution prevention and energy efficiency assessments, also known as P2E2 assessments, where we help you decrease pollution and increase energy efficiency at your site. Energy management systems provide your company with a framework to integrate energy efficiency into your existing management systems. And building retuning, or BRT, offers those involved in building operations a low-cost approach to energy efficiency. We offer opportunities to Penn State students in the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences to gain real-world experience by having them assist us with energy audits. And again, we go beyond energy, as we work closely with our clients to understand their needs as we match them to additional resources within the university and across the state. The innovation side of PennTAP provides technical and entrepreneurial assistance directly to companies. They connect with the faculty, students, laboratories, and infrastructure of Penn State through the EDA University Center and Engage, as well as our resource partners located throughout the state. Innovation also brings companies to Penn State's Learning Factory. Any company sponsoring a project at the Learning Factory is assigned a team of up to 5 Penn State students from various engineering backgrounds to work on your project. Previous sponsors include GM, Boeing, Shell, and FedEx, to name a few. Past Learning Factory projects have included everything from developing lightweight surgical lead vests to 3D printing for replacing obsolete parts. Innovation also helps student entrepreneurs with the first steps in pitching their business ideas and procuring funding. In 2019, we worked closely with 125 companies in 42 counties throughout Pennsylvania. Due to our ability to help clients, they were able to save a total of $4.5 million. 38 projects were completed at the Learning Factory through connections made by PennTAP. The projects helped the companies get engineering design work done while also allowing the students to have an experience outside of the classroom. Before we conclude, I'd like to tell you about our upcoming webinars. Join us again on September 17th for Engineering the 21st Century Service Economy, also from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., where we will discuss providing you more details about the Service Entrepreneur Enterprise Engineering Initiative in the Industrial and Manufacturing Engineering Department at Penn State. On October 15th, PennTAP will be hosting the Comfort Heating Systems webinar from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Join us as we discuss ways to save energy within your heating system at the site. PennTAP will review the best opportunities to reduce fuel costs and will cover energy savings opportunities such as combustion adjustment, programmable thermostats, and insulation. Be sure to visit the PennTAP website to stay connected and be informed of upcoming PennTAP news, webinars, and workshops. And be sure to check out the energy toolkits on our website. The toolkits are free to use and filled with resources to help you estimate the potential savings from energy efficiency projects in your home or at your facility. The toolkit is divided into 4 sectors: commercial, manufacturing, residential, and schools and municipalities. The toolkit provides users with energy cost calculators, fact sheets, and supplemental resources. Remember, once you are done, contact PennTAP for a professional energy audit to narrow down where to begin your next energy efficiency project. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me to learn more about using the E3 process. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat pod, or you can send me an email directly at rfs151@psu.edu. Right now, I'm going to take a moment to see if anyone has any questions, and they can put them in the chat pod. And we'll take a moment to see if the questions pop. Hi, I see Sai has raised his hand. Sai, would you mind adding your question into the chat pad to make it a bit easier? Thank you. Hi, Ralph mentioned adding a link to the Energy Toolkit resource. The best way to get there right now would be to go to pentap.psu.edu, and it's on our banner. And then Ralph, I will also follow up with you independently to send you a link directly to there. I can also include it within the note we send everyone to follow up. So thank you so much for asking that, Ralph.
Hello.
Hey, so Sai has asked if we could elaborate a little bit more about the CTC packaging work. So we went there and discussed the new saw line, and basically it's an example of in one building they had one process, and then it went from that building to another building kind of as an intermediate step. So it was stored in a separate warehouse. And then once that intermediate step needed to be, the intermediate product needed to go back and be resized, it would then go from that other warehouse back to the beginning spot. So the new, the new saw line allowed them to move material around. So there basically was not really an intermediate product anymore. It went right from the first process, got upgraded, sized properly, cut faster, and then went to the next process step kind of in the same building. So that's where some of the huge savings were overall. It was a larger project, and generally with E3s, we try to avoid people needing to buy such big equipment due to cost, but they were ready and eager and willing to go in with this and all kind of keep it as the same package to greatly improve their overall efficiency. And then the grant program, I think, was at least from my standpoint, kind of like the icing on the cake, that they were able to significantly lower the cost of purchasing that equipment. So hopefully that added the more detail you wanted, Sai, but I can also follow up with you at a different date to provide more information. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to go into that separately. And as we have now hit after a few minutes of questions, I am going to just kind of conclude this webinar, say thank you very much for everyone who attended. And if you have any questions that pop up in the next day or two, I'm more than happy to talk via email or via phone, so feel free to give me a call. I'd also like to thank Peter for taking time out of his day and giving us such a good overview of the Pollution Prevention Office. It was very helpful. Thank you so much, Peter. And with that, I'm going to end this. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Talk to everyone later. Bye.
Take care, everyone.